This video is sponsored by Synesthesia.
And especially, I really want to thank our Korean film audience, our moviegoers, who's been really supporting all our movies and never hesitated to give us straightforward opinion on what they feel like their movies. And that made us really never be able to be complacent and keep pushing the directors, the creators, keep pushing the envelopes.
When Mickey Lee took the stage along with the cast and crew of Parasite at the Academy Awards after its historic Best Picture win, she thanked the South Korean audiences for being fully open with their opinions and the South Korean directors for constantly striving to push the envelope. How appropriate that a statement like this comes from the vice chair of CJ Entertainment, a Korean company that has produced and distributed massive titles from Tidal Wave to relatively smaller films like Lee Chan-dong's Oasis or Kim Ki-duk's The Isle. All that aside, their golden boys are, without a doubt, Bong Joon-ho, Park Chan-wook, and the genre-bending master, Kim Ji-woon. His filmography has seen wild jumps in style and execution, from a western with comedic traits like The Good, the Bad, the Weird, to a slow-burn horror film like A Tale of Two Sisters, and even this.
Welcome to Summerton.
Now, the film he's mostly known for is probably the gruesomely terrifying revenge thriller I Saw the Devil, brimming with morbid, horrific moments that fluctuate throughout the film like a row of dominoes falling one after the other, unfolding a series of tragic events. Which is probably why a lot of people seek it out and end up loving it, because as you all know,
People are perverts.
I Saw the Devil is, after all, the film Kim released right before making the jump into the North American side of business.
Welcome to Summerton.
But all jokes aside, one of the more winsome qualities of Kim's work is that, as brutal as it may be, the characters are always faced with a moral dilemma. Yes, their actions can be heinous, but there's an undeniable pain behind each deed. Kim is aware that they can take a massive toll on the soul of a person. This enlightened approach to characterization is also prominent in his 2005 crime film, A Bittersweet Life. Sun Woo, a thug working for a crime boss and owner of a hotel, is given a task: to shadow the boss's young mistress, Hee Soo, and make sure she isn't having an affair. However, if he discovers that she is having an affair, then his duty is to kill both Hee Soo and her lover. Needless to say, the source for the moral struggle that faces these characters emerges when Sun Woo finds out that Hee Soo indeed has a lover. And the seemingly heartless man, the tough-as-nails Golem, makes a choice that will kick off the grisly events of the rest of the film. He chooses to spare them. He chooses life over death, but it comes at a great cost. It's not the first time we've seen something like this. It's that iconic allegorical instance right before the huntsman chops down Snow White by the order of the queen. There's a brief moment of distress that stops him, where he realizes the atrocity of what he's about to do.
I can't do it. Forgive me. I beg of your highness, forgive me.
His humanity takes over him, and I say that to spotlight this very word. Not everyone, not even a hired gun or a gangster, is an unfeeling, cold-hearted bastard. At the end of the day, everyone is human. And one of our primary instincts is to lean towards compassion and life when facing a situation of this nature. It's common to root for empathy over apathy, unless of course you're a psychopath. So it begs the question, why do the rest of the characters choose death over life? Well, there might be many reasons, right? It's part of their job, they're used to it, it doesn't make a difference to them, perhaps they've already lost their humanity. And perhaps that lack of humanity surrounding Sun-woo is what makes Sun-woo the focus of this story. From what the director chooses to show us, we can infer the life of our protagonist is one filled with loneliness. Just look at the composition, the way he's framed by cinematographer Ji Young Kim, and the obvious wink to the audience of having his workplace the hotel called La Dolce Vita. It's vapid, like a void that waits for something or someone to appear and fill it so it can have a purpose other than serving other men with less humanity. And this someone might have manifested in the form of Hee-soo. I guess this is where I come in with the hot takes, since I disagree with what a lot of people have to say about A Bittersweet Life. As I understand it, it's a given that the reason why Sun-woo spares Hee-soo is because he's falling in love with her in the short time he's spent shadowing her. Which, I understand, it's easy to arrive to that conclusion since we're treated to a couple of slow-paced, warm-hearted scenes between both characters, which is the most undisturbed this movie ever gets. It's the very few instances we see Sun-woo reaching something that appears to be happiness, a taste of a sweet life, a life different from his. But like I said, I disagree. To me, Sun-woo is not in love with Hee-soo, even though on its surface this appears to be a by-the-numbers crime flick that turns into a gory revenge thriller, and it would be the simplest deduction that he chooses to save her because he's falling in love. It always struck me as something deeper and more poetic. Rather than seeing radiant beauty and a likable personality, I think our thug sees a path in Hee-soo. A path leading to a better life. I never saw this as an attraction towards her as a person, but rather attraction towards what this woman signifies. Joy, the pleasure of music, a life more content, a life away from all the bitter sorrows that plague Sun-woo's environment, and instead focuses on a sweeter approach. After all, Sun-woo is not just some mindless killing machine. There's an indication in these sequences with Hee-soo that he is in fact yearning for something more outside of his current situation. Even though he's well off and doesn't seem to have many problems on the surface, there's a transparency that lets us see right through him and discover a sense of longing. So when the time comes to end her life, he's incapable of going through with it. How could he possibly take the life from the one person who's showed him true happiness? The one person who's showed him that life can be better, that life doesn't have to be miserable, life can be sweet. And therein lies the cynical irony of it all. By choosing the objectively right thing to do, by choosing life, he's doomed himself. Yes, I know I might be reading too much into this, and you know who'd argue that I'm reading too much into this? The director of the film. Yeah, Kim Ji-woon would tell me to shove my complicated theory up my ass and shut the fuck up. In an interview, he was specifically asked about the love between Sun-woo and Hee-soo, to which Kim said he wanted to talk about love. Love that remains unexpressed. Love that looks and suffers in silence. So yes, I'm pretty convinced that the director himself didn't intend for me to come away from A Bittersweet Life thinking what I just told you. But I don't know, I still feel like this unexpressed, mournful, and silent love could be interpreted as the defeated fondness that Sun-woo might have for the life Hee-soo represents, especially as he witnesses her playing music. He appears to enter a state of ecstasy, a trance we never see him come anywhere near throughout the rest of the film. Like Plato said, music gives a soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and life to everything. Also, in that same interview, Kim Ji-woon is asked if Jean-Pierre Melville is one of his influences, and he answers, "Yeah, but mostly Kill Bill." Okay, it's no big mystery that Kim wasn't particularly trying to achieve anything too metaphorical with A Bittersweet Life, but there's something about this film that makes it stand out for me among the rest of his work.
Welcome to Summerton.
I mean, sure, it's a genre picture, but it doesn't take away the gorgeous shot composition, the brilliant and meaningful opening and closing voiceovers, which are actually Buddhist parables. How many gangster films do you know that open with a fucking Buddhist parable? That's awesome. And his crafty handle on violence. So putting aside that layer of love and finding a sweeter meaning to life, I want to touch on how Ji-woon approaches physical and emotional violence. Yes, emotional violence. Though the torture and corporeal beatings Sun-woo is put through are brutal on their own, there's an underpinning of the emotional effect these have on his mind. After all, the foundation for all this, as we've mentioned, is his humanity taking the better of him. Living in the kind of world he lives in, he was probably aware that serious consequences would arise because of his actions. But when things escalate to the extreme, Sun-woo feels terrified of what might happen to him and Hee-soo. But one thing I was not expecting was the fact that he feels somewhat betrayed by the people he was loyal to. In one of the confrontations he has with the big boss, Sun-woo seems genuinely heartbroken at the fact that such violent measures were taken against him solely because he spared Hee-soo's life. It seems this character has hidden away an insurmountable amount of emotions beneath his surface. Emotions that, after this tragic incident, all come to flourish. And to top it all off, you got the physical aspect of violence. And I was actually surprised at the use of gun violence in A Bittersweet Life. Let me explain. In the first, I would say half of the movie, you rarely see any guns being used. I can only think of the opening scene where Sun-woo has to deal with some knuckleheads. Here he actually disarms them, kicks their ass, and finishes the last guy off with a bottle. Notice the sound the bottle makes as it crashes against the thug's head. It very much sounds like a gunshot to me, as if it was a declaration that hand-to-hand combat is the lethal weapon of choice for these guys. No guns, no knives, just hits and kicks. Which helps with the suspension of disbelief that always comes when the good guy has to fight the bad guys and they all happen to carry guns, but for some reason they don't shoot. Okay, I know these are wildly different movies, but why don't they just shoot him? So the lack of guns for the first half works to the advantage of the movie. Then the second half kicks in, and it becomes a necessity for Sun-woo to have a gun to face off against his new enemies. And let me tell you, when guns are introduced as an important element to the story, they make a full-on entrance, as if they were a secondary character. And in a way, they are. The fight choreography becomes less skillful and leaves way for Sun-woo to finish people off with a simple bullet. As the movie progresses, it highlights the fact that gone are the ways of hand-to-hand combat. This is a merciless world where you can pull the trigger and move on. This is the deterioration of Sun-woo, a complex character that couldn't possibly belong in a film deemed a simple crime flick. A Bittersweet Life is much, much more than that. It's a special movie dealing with various themes and moral labyrinths, and as one of the pieces in Ji-woon's filmography, it helped push the envelope of international cinema, in particular, of course, South Korean cinema. I often hear there are no new stories to be told in film. It's all been there, done that, you know? Well, if that's the case, maybe we shouldn't push filmmakers to try something new, but to try something different. And yes, I do think this is a different, more nuanced take on the you get what you get when you live a life of crime plot, or the vengeance storyline, or the romance storyline. It gives it a slightly different spin, a new flavor to the mix, and voila! Things like that inspire people to seek out more films like this. The same way some people might watch The Host and maybe want to try out Memories of Murder. Or if you want to try a more distant game of 6 Degrees of Separation, someone might love the American version of The Ring, and that would inspire them to watch the original Japanese version, and maybe that would inspire them to seek out other Asian horror films, and they could end up watching A Tale of Two Sisters, and boom, now this person has been introduced to the world of Kim Ji-woon. It's honestly a miracle that international cinema has become more and more recognized over the years by audiences and the Academy alike. But there's still a long way to go. Sticking with South Korea, they had never even gotten a Best International Feature nomination up until Parasite, which ended up sweeping up the ceremony. And they absolutely had a wide array of movies that could have earned a nomination in previous years. You know, it's funny how I always say that these awards ceremonies don't really matter and they're meaningless, yet I seem to react strongly to the outcomes of what gets nominated and what ends up winning.
Parasite.
Every single time. I actually cried when Parasite won Best Picture. Not only was I happy for Bong, but for the international film industry as a whole. Oh, and I also had a big emotional reaction with this one, but for different reasons.
Green Book.
In the end, every step of the way matters, but it always starts with one idea, one film. One film opens a world of possibilities. And this film, that mixes life, love, and violence, ends up with a quite unique result, a bittersweet result. Like this opening shot, the Pacific, almost numbing waving of the leaves on the trees. A simple choice that communicates so much.